The incident report blamed me for missing the client deadline by 3 days. The client's automated delivery receipt showed I'd uploaded the final deliverable 48 hours early. I had the timestamp, February 22nd, 3:17 p.m. The contract required submission by February 24th at 5 p.m. The incident report was dated February 27th. It said I'd failed to meet the deadline, causing project delays and client dissatisfaction. It was signed by my manager and forwarded to HR for disciplinary review. The client had a different version of events. They'd sent a thank you email on February 23rd. Subject line, "Early delivery appreciated." The body praised the quality of the analysis and noted that receiving it ahead of schedule allowed them to present it to their board 2 days early. My manager had told them I was responsible for the delay. The client forwarded their original thank you email to our CEO with a question. "We're confused about the incident report. Alison delivered early and the work was excellent. Can you clarify?" My name is Alison. I worked as a senior analyst at a consulting firm in Boston. I built market research reports for Fortune 500 clients. I tracked timelines. I documented deliverables. I'd never missed a deadline in 3 years. Then my manager started taking credit for my work. At first it was subtle. Client presentations where he'd reframe my analysis as "our findings," without acknowledging I'd done the research. Team meetings where he'd reference "the work we completed," when I'd been the only person working on it. Then it escalated. He started telling clients I needed his oversight to stay on track. He scheduled check-in calls where he'd review my work and suggest changes that contradicted the client's original specifications. The February project was the breaking point. I delivered it 48 hours early. The client confirmed receipt. I archived the confirmation email and moved on to my next assignment. 3 days later, I received a meeting invitation from HR. Subject line, "Performance discussion." I opened my delivery documentation and started taking screenshots. I had the delivery receipt, the client confirmation, the original project timeline, the contract terms that specified the February 24th deadline. I compiled everything into a folder and saved it in 3 locations. The HR meeting was scheduled for the following morning. I arrived 10 minutes early with printed copies of my documentation. The HR director and my manager were already in the conference room. I sat down without speaking. The HR director opened a file on her laptop. "We received an incident report regarding the February client deliverable," she said. "Your manager reported that you missed the deadline by 3 days, which caused client dissatisfaction." I nodded. "Do you have a response to this?" I slid the printed delivery receipt across the table. "I delivered the project on February 22nd at 3:17 p.m., I said. "The deadline was February 24th at 5 p.m. The client confirmed receipt and thanked us for the early delivery." The HR director picked up the document and read it. My manager shifted in his chair. "The client expressed concerns about the analysis during our follow-up call," he said. "That's why I filed the incident report." "When was the follow-up call?" I asked. "February 26th. "Do you have documentation of their concerns?" He paused. "It was a verbal discussion." I pulled out another document, the client's thank you email from February 23rd. "They sent this the day after I delivered," I said. "It says the work was excellent and that early delivery allowed them to present to their board ahead of schedule." The HR director read that email too. "I'll need to review this further," she said. "We'll reconvene after I've spoken with the client directly." My manager's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. The meeting ended. I went back to my desk and continued working on my current project. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. On day 3, the HR director sent an email requesting another meeting. This time, my manager wasn't on the invitation. I arrived at the scheduled time. The CEO was in the room. I'd never met with him before. He gestured for me to sit. "The client forwarded us your delivery confirmation," he said, "along with their original thank you email. They also forwarded the incident report your manager filed. They wanted to know why we were claiming you'd missed a deadline when their records show you delivered early." I didn't respond. "Do you have anything to add?" he asked. "No," I said. "The documentation speaks for itself." He nodded slowly. "How long has this been happening?" "How long has what been happening? Your manager taking credit for your work? Or misrepresenting your performance to clients?" I thought about that question carefully. 6 months, I said. "Why didn't you report it?" "I didn't have proof until now." The CEO looked at the HR director. "Pull all of Alison's client deliverables for the past year," he said. "Compare the timestamps against project deadlines and request client feedback on every project she's worked on." The HR director made a note. "Alison, you're being reassigned effective immediately," the CEO said. "You'll report directly to the VP of Client Services. Your manager will no longer have oversight of your work." "What about the incident report?" I asked. "It's being removed from your file. We're conducting a broader review of management practices in your department." The meeting ended. I returned to my desk and started organising my files for the transition. My manager didn't contact me. We didn't speak in the hallway. I was moved to a different floor by the end of the week. The VP of Client Services met with me on my first day in the new reporting structure. "The CEO asked me to review your work history," she said. "You've delivered 23 projects in the past year, all on time or early. Client satisfaction scores average 4.8 out of 5. I nodded. "Your manager's performance reviews of you tell a different story," she continued. "They cite concerns about deadline management and quality control." "I have delivery confirmations for every project," I said. "I've seen them. The CEO requested them as part of the review." She pulled up a spreadsheet on her screen. "We're implementing new oversight protocols," she said. "All client deliverables will be logged in a central system with automatic timestamp verification. Managers won't be able to modify or dispute delivery records without documented evidence." "When does that start?" "Next week. You'll be one of the first analysts to use it." I spent the next month working on 3 new client projects. Each one was logged in the new system. Each delivery was automatically timestamped and confirmed. My manager was placed on administrative leave during the 2nd week. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. The review had found discrepancies between his incident reports and actual client feedback for multiple analysts on his team. 4 weeks after my reassignment, the VP of Client Services called me into her office. "The review is complete," she said. "Your former manager is no longer with the company." "When did that happen?" "Yesterday." She handed me a folder. "These are the findings from the client feedback analysis," she said. "Your work was consistently rated higher than your performance reviews indicated. The discrepancy was significant enough to warrant termination." I opened the folder. 23 client projects. 23 positive feedback summaries. Every one contradicted at least one element of my manager's performance reviews. "We're offering you a promotion," the VP said. "Senior consultant. You'd lead client engagements directly without intermediate oversight." "What's the salary?" She told me. It was 30% higher than my current rate. I accept, I said. The promotion was announced the following week. I was assigned a team of 2 junior analysts. I managed 3 major client accounts. I implemented the same documentation protocols I'd been using, every deliverable logged, every client interaction recorded, every timeline tracked in the central system. No verbal commitments, no undocumented feedback. Everything time-stamped. The clients responded well. 2 of them expanded their contracts within 3 months. 6 months after the promotion, the client who'd forwarded the thank you email to the CEO requested me specifically for a new engagement. "We want Alison leading this project," their VP said during the kick-off call. "Her work on the February deliverable exceeded expectations. We'd like the same level of quality for this analysis." The VP of Client Services was on the call. "Alison will lead the engagement," she confirmed. "She has full authority over the project timeline and deliverables." The porking ran for 4 months. I delivered each milestone on schedule. The client approved every phase without revision. The final report was submitted 2 days early. The client sent a thank you email copied to the CEO and the VP of Client Services. "Alison's team delivered exceptional work ahead of schedule," it said. "We'd like to discuss expanding our partnership." The expectations was worth $1.2 million in annual consulting fees. I was promoted to principal consultant 8 months later. The former came with direct client relationship management, strategic account planning, and oversight of 6 consultants. I've been consulting systems I'd used from your own work: centralized scribing, automated timestamps, client feedback integrated into performance reviews. No manager could modify a delivery record without system-level authentication. No incident report could be filed without corresponding client documentation. The protocols became standard across the consulting division. A year after my first promotion, I was invited to present at the company's annual leadership conference. The CEO asked me to explain how we'd improved client satisfaction scores by 23% in the consulting division. I stood in front of 80 managers and directors. I talked about documentation, about transparency, about ensuring that client feedback and delivery records were accessible to everyone involved in a project. I didn't mention my former manager. I didn't mention the incident report or the February deliverable. I just explained the systems and the results they'd produced. One of the other directors asked a question. "How do you handle situations where a manager disagrees with a delivery timeline?" "The system timestamps every submission," I said. "Managers can review the work, but they can't dispute when it was delivered. That's verified independently." "What if there's a quality issue?" "Quality concerns are documented in the client feedback loop. If a client has concerns, those are recorded and addressed. But delivery timing is a separate metric." The CEO nodded from the front row. After the presentation, he asked me to join him in his office. "The client feedback from your accounts is the highest in the division," he said. "The teams do good work." "It's more than that. You've built something sustainable." "I documented what was already happening," I said. "I just made it visible." He smiled slightly. "That's more valuable than you think." 2 years after the incident report, I was overseeing 12 client accounts. My team had grown to 15 consultants. The division's revenue had increased by 40%. I never worked with my former manager again. I heard he'd moved to a different consulting firm. I didn't follow his career. I'd built something that didn't depend on anyone's version of events. It depended on timestamps and client confirmations and documented deliverables. That was more reliable. 3 years after the February project, I was promoted to Vice President of Client Strategy. I reported directly to the CEO. I managed a division of 45 consultants across 8 office locations. The delivery verification system I'd helped develop was now company-wide. Every project, every deadline, every client interaction logged and time-stamped. Managers still provided feedback and oversight, but they couldn't revise history. They couldn't claim a deliverable was late when the system showed it was early. The documentation protected everyone. The consultants knew their work was being recorded accurately. The clients had visibility into project timelines. The managers had clear metrics for evaluation. It worked better that way. Sometimes new consultants would ask me about the system, why it was so rigorous, why every deliverable needed 3 levels of timestamp verification. I told them it ensured accountability. I didn't tell them about the incident report, about the client email that had contradicted my manager's claims, about the 3 days I'd spent waiting for HR to review documentation that proved I'd delivered early. That wasn't relevant to why the system mattered. 4 years after the February deliverable, I was sitting in a board meeting presenting quarterly results. One of the board members mentioned client retention rates. That improved by 34% since we'd implemented the new delivery verification protocols. What drove that improvement? He asked. Transparency, I said. Clients can verify delivery timelines independently. They don't have to rely on our claims. They can see the timestamps themselves. And internally? Consultants know their work is being documented accurately. Performance reviews are based on verified data, not subjective assessments. The board approved additional investment in the system. After the meeting, the CEO walked with me back to my office. "You built something important here," he said. "I built what should have existed already," I said. "Most people wouldn't have known how to do that." I thought about the February deliverable, the 48-hour early submission, the thank you email, the incident report that had tried to rewrite what across actually happened. I had good documentation, I said. That was all it had taken. Good documentation. And a client who'd kept their own records. Their delivery receipt from February 22nd to 18. I hadn't looked at it in years, but watching exactly where it